Welcome to a new episode of B&B Movie Reviews. This week, we scream for a sixth time, face the fury of the gods, roll the dice with Chris Pine, and have a shoot-around with Keanu Reeves. Stay right there. B&B is coming up next.
Guys?
The Core 4 is back. This time around, they're outside Woodsboro, 3,000 miles away in New York City. When the body count starts piling up, our main characters take a stand against the most vicious and ruthless Ghostface yet. Brad, Scream 6.
Yes.
So we're back again. So Neve Campbell is out the first time that she's not in a Scream movie. Got a new setting, New York City. We've never been outside. Well, no, that's not true. Scream 3, we were in LA.
Yeah.
It was still on
Yeah.
the West Coast, but not in Woodsboro. So
This feels like a big departure setting-wise
it does.
for the franchise.
It does, and I think it fits. I think it brings fresh energy, something new to the franchise that we've never seen before. The Ghostface, I think, is a little bit more vicious in the approach of his kills. I don't know. What was your take on this movie?
I mean, it is vicious.
Yeah.
The Radio Silence boys who made this film and the last one, as well as
Yeah.
Ready or Not,
Yeah.
they like to sell the gore of the Scream films. And it's not like the Wes Craven Screams weren't bloody.
No.
But these are maybe like a little bit more mean in their kills, and it puts me back a little bit.
Okay.
But the opening of this Scream, and I think when you're talking about a Scream movie, you really have to start with that first sequence. And I actually think this sequence, without spoiling it,
Yeah.
is maybe the best one since the original. And that is high praise for me.
It's crazy because, again, try not to spoil the opening scene. They do something where I'm just like, oh, we're taking a different approach.
Well, what's fascinating about it is, the opening is actually kind of basic. And for the first few minutes, you're going like, oh, this isn't really exciting. This is so blah. But then they bring that twist.
Yes.
And that twist takes the movie up a notch. And then the film doesn't live up to where it took you in that opening sequence. I don't think it's ever as good as that first reveal.
No, you're right. You're right. I think that first reveal sells the movie where it really hooks you at the beginning, and then it never really lives up. Although
it plants this idea that the movie is going to be exploring something different than
Yes.
it actually does.
Yeah.
It becomes very much a traditional Scream film.
Yeah,
and that's disappointing.
And that's the thing, yeah, because at this point with the sixth film, I would have loved to have seen them continue on the path that they introduced with that opening scene, but they don't. But that's even fine because even with that, I think the experience of watching this movie was really top notch. I mean, if you see this with a crowd, especially opening weekend, with a lot of the Scream fans, it really does live up to everything that you want out of a movie like this.
I think so much of what's good about the movie is the setting, is the New York City environment.
Yeah.
That subway sequence is a highlight in the film. The bodega sequence,
Yes.
earlier than the subway sequence, where Ghostface suddenly is wielding a shotgun, the danger of that scene is heightened in a way that other stock and slash Ghostface sequences in previous films are not.
Yes.
So yeah, the New York really works, which is impressive since they filmed the whole movie in Montreal.
That's right. That's right. I do remember them
and
doing
they do
that.
a great job of mimicking New York City.
They do. And talking about those sequences, something I did notice about the Radio Silence guys is the way they like to take the tension and the suspense of a sequence and really kind of play with the audience. There was a sequence in the 5th movie, that sequence in the house and the way they play with the jump scares and just like prolonging that. They do that here in this movie, and I love the way they can take those sequences and really play with the audience as far as like what you're expecting, when the jump scare is going to hit, and just kind of building and keeping you on the edge.
What's weird about this Scream, though, is that the violence is extreme. So many people get stabbed in this movie multiple times. Yeah. So many people walk away from these stabbings. The survival rate is actually pretty high as well.
Yeah.
So as bloody as the movie is, you also have these people who get gutted. Nobody would walk away from 27 stab wounds, but suddenly these guys are okay. They're in the back of an ambulance, or in some characters' cases, you hear an off-screen like, "Oh,
they survived.
They survived. They're okay." Yeah. Just so we can maintain those characters in Scream 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Did you see the reveal? Now a lot of times I don't really pick or can see who the killer is like coming as I'm watching the movie. But there's something in this movie, and I'm not going to give anything away, but it was kind of telling. And I was just like, let me keep my eye on that. And I ended up being right.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Congratulations.
But did you see that coming?
Here's the thing about a Scream movie. Everyone on screen is a suspect. Mm-hmm. So at some point, you're like, oh, I think it's that person.
Yeah.
And that was the case for me in Scream 6. Then I would go away from that person and go like, oh, no, it's that person.
Yeah.
So at some point in the runtime, I did peg, I don't want to spoil it, but there's always more than one killer. A couple of the killers in Scream 6.
Yeah, that's the one thing I picked up on. But overall, what's a rating? What's your rating for this? Or
Yeah, so we're the B&B show, right? Yes. So our ratings are binary. It's a B+, meaning we recommend it, that's our thumbs up.
Yes.
Or a B-, meaning you got to skip it, don't bother. And for Scream 6, I'm giving it a B+. I have some issues with it, but still a good time at the movies.
I agree with you, man. I'm giving this one a B+, so that's a B+ for both of us for Scream 6. So yeah, there you go. That's our rating, and that's our rating system. So B+ for us both. When we return, we will take a look at DC's latest in Shazam. Stay right there.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
We are at war. We will annihilate everything. Champions of this realm can do nothing to stop us.
You are very menacing. I just want you to know that.
The Daughters of Atlas are on a mission to regain their powers of the gods, and it's up to the Shazamly to stop them in the latest DC film, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Brian, I know you really enjoy the first film. I enjoyed the first film. Did this film, the sequel, succeed in surpassing the original?
Let me take a step back and say that the movie lived up to my expectations. But my expectations were extremely low.
Why is that, though? Because you did like the original Shazam.
I did. I don't know. I think because it's hard to say why my expectations were low for this one. I just think that the movie itself, I don't know. It's hard to say. Just the movie just didn't look appealing. From the trailers. The trailers never really kind of sold me on the idea of wanting to see the furthering adventures of Shazam and the Shazam family.
I think the Shazam! Fury of the Gods trailers did fail the movie. I don't think they were that appealing. I also think that this film falls in this weird place where we're in a middle of transition regarding the DC universe of films.
Yeah.
You know, James Gunn is taking over, the Snyderverse is fading away. This is like a last little piece of the previous regime.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to get excited about what this film is setting up itself, because this film is really tied to those Zack Snyder films.
And it's a bit confusing to kind of maybe jump ahead to like some of the post-credit scenes. Like, it's very confusing in the approach as far as like, okay, what are we doing and where are we going? Like, what's next?
By like taking all of that off the table,
Yeah.
like let's forget what came before this film and what's coming after
just
this
focus
film.
on this movie.
Let's focus on this movie.
And
it's not good.
It's not a good movie.
I like the first film. I think the first film
Yeah.
succeeded in its heart, its comedy, and its superheroism. And I think this film fails on all fronts.
You know, I want to start with Zachary Levi. And one of my issues in the first movie continues in this movie, where I think you look at the character of Billy Batson and Shazam. So you have Zachary Levi and Asher Angel. And it feels like they're getting two different directions. And
They're not the same person.
They are not the same person. Like, Asher Angel is playing a 17-year-old on the cusp of being an adult. And when he's Shazam, he's playing like he's 12 years old. It's not the same character.
Yeah.
And that takes me out of the movie. That takes me out of the story. And it takes me out of the emotional stakes of the character.
Part of
I
the
don't believe
joy of the first film was how it was trying to do a superhero version of Big, right?
Yes.
And I think it succeeded for the most part
Yeah.
in that
Yeah, I think
kind
it
of
did.
genre mashup or movie mashup. That is all gone in the second film. And you're right, Zachary Levi is playing like a 12-year-old and not this 18-year-old. And Asher Angel, when he's on screen, he's so morose and he's filled with all this anxiety about transitioning into adulthood. But the moment he transforms into Shazam, that's gone.
It's all gone. It's all gone. And then to get to the villain aspect of this, I mean, my whole thing is, first of all, this is a very simple story that gets extremely convoluted with the motivations of the villains. Like Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren, and then we have Rachel Zegler, like great actresses.
What are they doing?
But what are they doing? It's like they're after this staff because it's like they want to regain the power, or do they want to go home?
So
and then
when
they
the
want to
staff was broken at the end of the first film, that broke the barrier between gods and humanity, and gods were able to seep back into our world.
Okay.
And they want to regain the power structure that they had before that.
I'm going with you on this. You're
But-
explaining it better
but
than the movie
there
did.
is a betrayal between that group halfway through that makes no sense.
No sense.
But I also, by that point, I did not care that it made no sense. Because, you know, I love Helen Mirren. I love Lucy Liu.
great, yeah.
Right? But they're not really bringing anything to this.
They're not
They're
bringing
walking through this movie.
Pretty much. Especially Lucy Liu, who's supposed to be the main villain, and her delivery of some of her lines is so monotone.
And it's not necessarily her fault. Like, the costumes don't necessarily fit them. They're surrounded in blue screen. Who knows what direction they're getting? But they feel very flat. And at no point are you ever worried for anyone in this movie.
And the kids are so grating on me. Like, I just, like, for me, when I'm seeing kids, and Jack Dylan Grazer, who gets the majority of the screen time, surprisingly more than Asher Angel does.
Yeah. Don't you kind of wish you were following his movie?
I don't know. Because again, his character and just like the way he acts, like with the yelling and the screaming and the antics, like some of that stuff just like, it gets so tiresome after watching this for 2 hours that I just cannot connect to anything that these kids are going through. So I'm just like this movie was a chore. It was literally a chore to get through this movie.
I think the end, when these mythological creatures are unleashed upon the city, and suddenly, for some reason, we have like these Ray Harryhausen-like creatures, the Cyclops from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and you have harpies from Jason the Argonauts. Like, that's like, oh, I like all the design. This is kind of fun.
Yeah.
But also, you have this unicorn sequence, and Skittles must have paid a fortune for this product placement.
I know.
It's embarrassing.
It really is. What's your rating for this one?
This one made me miss Black Adam. I'm giving this a big B-.
Yeah, this is the Black Adam of 2023. So yeah, this is a B- for me as well. So 2 thumbs down for Shazam. All right, so when we get back, we're going to take a switch and look at Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Stay right there.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Once the dead man is revived, we can ask him 5 questions, at which point he will die again, never to be re-revived.
Were you killed in the Battle of the Evermores?
Yes.
4 more questions, right?
Yes.
No, that wasn't for you. Did that count as a question?
Yes.
Damn it. Only answer when I talk to you, okay?
Yes.
Why did you say okay at the end of that?
I didn't.
Fantastic. Where's the shovel?
Edgin squanders the chance to get vital information from the undead when he doesn't understand the rules of engagement to ask 5 questions in one of many hilarious sequences in the cleverly written Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Brad.
Yeah.
Okay. This movie, just even watching that clip brings a smile to my face. And this movie is filled with so many sequences that, again, like I said, it's cleverly written, is just sharp with the banter with the cast, the chemistry between them. It is just so good the way they construct this movie, man.
But, like, talk about how excited we were to see this film when we were discussing Shazam, right? You see that trailer and you're like, I don't know if I really care about this. And you see the trailer for Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, and I had the same reaction where like, this doesn't really look particularly interesting. The only thing it had going for it to lift my excitement was it's from the directors of Game Night, which is a hilarious movie.
Yes.
So this has to have something in it to spark their imagination.
Yeah.
Then you're watching that movie, and all that awkward comedy that you see in the trailer actually lands in the film itself. It's amazing.
And dude, the open... It's gonna be. I'm gonna be laughing throughout this whole review. The opening scene of this movie really sets the tone for what we're getting into for the rest of the film. And that opening scene is so brilliant because first, Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez are great.
Never would have paired them together.
Never would have paired.
They have such good chemistry.
They have such good chemistry because Michelle Rodriguez is kind of stoic. She doesn't have a lot of the dialogue. Chris Pine actually carries a lot when it comes to the dialogue. I'm not saying that she's completely like mute in the movie or nothing like that, but they do have
She's
great
the silent
chemistry.
partner in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but they do have great chemistry.
Yeah.
And that opening scene, going to that scene, and then when we introduce some of the other Band of Misfits, when Justice Smith comes in, when Ray J. John Paul comes in,
good.
everybody comes in and they serve their part, and it's hilarious, and it's engaging, and it's heartwarming.
It's
heartfelt.
unapologetic, right?
Yeah.
It's unapologetic about its fantasy trappings. And in that opening sequence, you have, ogres, you have a dragon-born character, you have a Birdman, and those are not all CGI creations. They're practical suits.
And
they look gorgeous.
They look great.
And then the comedy lands, and it's sold well by all the performers. We watched this together.
Yeah.
And you were crying, laughing the whole film.
I'm telling you, man, I mentioned this before, like, I don't think I've laughed out loud in a theater in a long time, probably since Game Night. And that's why, like, I'm really on board with these directors, and I can't wait to see what they do next. But yeah, coming off Game, and I wasn't really looking forward to this movie like you were saying based off the trailers, but then I started, and you were there, you were like, dude, like this movie. And I started thinking about Game Night, and I was like, I love that movie. These guys, I was like, you know what, let me give it a chance. And you know what? They did not disappoint at all.
Now, I'm not a Dungeons & Dragons person.
No, neither
You're not
am I.
a Dungeons & Dragons
Nope.
person. I would love to hear what somebody who was really invested in this mythology would think of this film.
Yes.
I have a feeling that they would still like it because the movie never mocks the environment, the mythology, the characters. It's never speaking down to them. I think it's actually a very celebratory expression of the Dungeons & Dragons world, saying from somebody who knows nothing about Dungeons & Dragons,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
But like, to me, this is a good time. I'm fascinated by all the characters, all the lore, It looks great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's interesting too. I mean, we don't have time to get into it too much, but I know we had a conversation about this after the movie as far as like tone. And sometimes when we see properties that we love take a certain tone that maybe we aren't really or that we may not want to see.
Or we don't imagine that world being in.
Exactly.
Right?
But then when you see that they do it, just because it's a comedic tone doesn't mean that the creators aren't taking it seriously.
And there is an emotional core to Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves.
Yes.
And it pays off. I got choked up.
Yeah,
and,
it works.
So balancing that tones, it's tricky.
Yeah.
But I think that these folks really made it, work.
Yeah, and just one last thing, I just have to give a shout out to the cast. I mean, we talked about Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez, Justice Smith, who we talked about in Sharper, who I'm starting to become a little bit more of a fan of as he gets away from Jurassic World, and then Reggae John Paul, I believe his name is, and then of course we just talked about Hugh Grant. He's hilarious again in this movie.
Doing that Hugh Grant thing.
Oh, it is so much fun to watch. But yeah, so what is your rating for this movie?
A shocking, surprising B+.
This is a high B+ for me. One of my favorite movies of the year, and I cannot wait to watch it. So yeah, those are our thoughts on Dungeons and Dragons. That hits theaters next week. So take a look out for that movie when it comes out. So stay tuned. We will be back with John Wick Chapter 4. Stay right there.
Every 2 minutes, a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer. With your help, we can end breast cancer. We are all stronger together.
So, you want to kill him? You want to kill him? I want to kill him. What about you, Mr. Vic?
I'm going to kill you.
Oh, for better, of course, yeah. But it looks like we have ourselves a genuine conundrum. A quandary, if you will. A real-life dilemma.
John Wick fights for his freedom when he finds himself caught in the middle of new foes and enemies on the hunt to kill him in the latest chapter of the John Wick saga, John Wick Chapter 4. Brad, this movie is so long.
It's
nearly
long.
3 hours, 2 hours and 50 minutes. Brian, did you like it? Was it too long?
But okay, I'll say this. For a movie like John Wick that is basically kind of like a shoot 'em up action movie, when you hear that runtime, you're like, okay, is there enough story to fit an almost 3-hour movie? I say yes. There is. And I look forward to more.
This movie could have been 7 hours long.
Could have been, yeah.
I would have been all on board for the 7-hour cut of John Wick Chapter 4.
Yes.
What's interesting is when you look at how John Wick Chapter 2 ended with him being excommunicado on the run, and John Wick Chapter 3 starts off and we're running and gunning.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like, it's such a great transition between 2 and 3.
Yeah, I love it.
The transition from 3 to 4 is a little different, and the movie actually, the fourth film starts off a little slower. It still has like an action beat at the very beginning.
Oh, yeah.
But after that first initial action beat, which is good but not amazing, we slow down, but then we go to the Continental in Osaka.
Yes.
And the moment John Wick steps foot on the Continental in Osaka, the movie does not stop.
We're off and running.
And it has to be one of the best action movies I've ever seen. That is hyperbole,
yes,
but also truth.
Yes, I agree, and I agree. No, but I love the fact that we slow down in the beginning and give it some time because, like you say, the first 3 movies take place over the span of like a week and a half, like no more than 2 weeks. So like when everything happens, when we get the inciting incident in John Wick 1, when his dog dies, spoiler alert, and then when we get to Chapter 3, that all happens, I would say, roughly within a week. So we get, a little bit of distance between 4 and 3. And like you say, I love the fact that we give the movie time to breathe. But once we kick it off with the Continental in Osaka and we get introduced to all these new characters, which also is a highlight of this movie as well, I mean, it is just a blast to watch. And the story is compelling. Again, like I was saying before with, I think it was Shazam, how it's a straightforward and kind of simple story, but it's more compelling because these are characters that we've lived with for 3 films, and we actually are kind of invested in John Wick's story, you know, with what happened to him at the end of 3. And now he wants revenge, he wants his freedom, you know, going up against the high table, and then all the stakes are there. So I'm loving everything that we're seeing with
I
that.
rewatched the previous 3 films right before recording, and I kind of miss the emotional core of the first film. Like, the grief that John Wick is going through in that first film is so palpable.
Yes.
And it's not really present in 4 because, I mean, they reference it.
Yes.
They reference it.
Yes.
And, you know, especially in the last few moments of John Wick Chapter 4, it comes back in a big way.
Yes.
But I kind of wish that we were reminded of that pain more frequently throughout the action of the 4th chapter. I was missing some of that emotion.
I agree, because I think there's a consistent through line with all the action in the John Wick saga. There's a consistent through line with him dealing with the grief of the
how
loss
he
of
got
his,
here.
How he got here, and the grief of, it's always the love and the grief of his wife. And I feel like maybe some of that is missing, but I thought about this after we finished watching 4, where I think that this might be one of the most emotional movies since the first one, and maybe not because of John Wick. I'm thinking some of the other characters.
Right, Donnie Yen.
Donnie Yen, man, we got to talk about him.
So you watch the trailer for this movie, and you're like, oh yay, Donnie Yen's in this. He'll have a part like he did in Blade 2, right? And I love Donnie Yen in Blade 2, but it's a tiny, tiny role.
Yeah.
He's a significant player in John Wick Chapter 4. In fact, I would say that he is like second build in this movie.
Absolutely.
And the emotion behind his storyline is maybe stronger than the emotion behind John Wick's storyline.
And when we get to the end of John Wick Chapter 4, and, you know, not giving anything away, it's moving.
Yes.
Because of those storylines between Kane and John Wick. It is such
and
a
how
moving...
that relationship sort of turns on itself in multiple ways over the course of this 3-hour runtime. They are different people to each other at different sequences.
At different absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And it's just, and then with the action sequences, I mean, it's so, the last 30 minutes.
Last hour, Brian.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I feel like it's the last hour of John Wick
and
is one
so
action
many,
scene.
the setting in the house, then we have the car chase, and then we have the stairs.
There is a sequence that I think we'll be calling the Dragon's Breath sequence.
Yes.
That is shot from above. It's a bird's eye view of the violence. And I've never seen anything like it.
Chad Stahelski just keeps getting better and better with his filmmaking. Every movie, the production design, the lighting, everything is just dripping with gorgeousness. Of everything looks beautiful.
And
in this movie.
all the John Wick movies reference Buster Keaton, you know, the stunts of the silent films. And there is a chunk of that last hour that involves a staircase.
Yes.
That feels very Buster Keaton.
Yeah.
It is very funny in a grim way.
Yeah.
And
you feel the pain.
The pain that John Wick has to go through on that staircase.
Yeah.
Ouch.
It's a journey.
And Keanu Reeves. He has to have collected a few bruises over the course of this film.
Easily. What's your rating for this?
Oh, massive B+. This is one of my favorite films of the year.
Same. It is definitely tops for me. B+ for me, one of the best movies I've seen this year. So, yeah, those are our thoughts on John Wick Chapter 4. So that's out now, so definitely check that one out. So just to give you a recap of the movies we reviewed this week, Scream 6, we both give that a B+. Shazam, Fury of the Gods, I believe that's the subtitle to it.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter anyway. B- for both of us for that. Dungeons and Dragons, that's coming out later this week. We give that a B+ for both of us. Highly recommend seeing that one. And John Wick Chapter 4. Highly recommend checking that movie out. Me and Brad both give that a B+. So, thank you for joining us on this latest episode of B&B Movie Reviews. Come be a part of the conversation. If you have questions, suggestions, feel free to email us at bnbmoviereviews@gmail.com. And with that, we'll see you at the movies.